And hello, everybody, and welcome to the Movie Pit Podcast. I am your host, Christian. Thank you very much for joining me on today's show. We got quite a packed one today. It's pretty big. We got a lot of news that came out. As soon as the podcast went up last week and over the weekend, and we have a bunch of news that came out this week. So let's get right to it because there's a lot to get to. So we're gonna start, of course, like we always do, with the news items that came out after the podcast went up last week. The first one being that Callum Turner is going to play Newt Scamander brother in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them sequel is currently underway, finding its cast. I believe it was a couple weeks ago. It might have been last week. I don't actually remember now. Again, it all kind of blurs together. Now that I do the podcast, all the news kind of really just blurs together. But Jude Law was cast as a young Dumbledore recently, and of course Johnny Depp is going to return as Grindelwald, and of course Eddie Redmayne will return as the lead character Newt Scamander. Now the role that Callum Turner is going to play is, like I just mentioned, the brother of Newt Scamander. No other details have been released just yet. The plot is being kept under wraps as well, but we do know that the script will be written once again by J.K. Rowling. It will be directed by David Yates, who directed the last film and the last 4 Harry Potter films, and it will be set in Paris. But that's all we know. And this will be the second film in a film of 5, because it's Harry Potter and we gotta have more than one movie. So there's that. As for Turner, he's still a pretty fresh face in Hollywood, so we don't know his name. I don't blame you, I didn't know who he was. He's been in films like Green Room, Victor Frankenstein, Tramps, Beauty and Country, and he had a role in Assassin's Creed. Once I saw his face, I recognized he was one of the... If you saw Assassin's Creed, he was one of the guys that was trying to warn, or not necessarily warn, but he was very antagonistic toward Michael Fassbender's character. He was one of the guys, so there was that. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, I believe we'll start filming sometime this year, because they do have a release date for next year on November 16th. So they'll probably start filming probably in the summer, somewhere around there. So we'll obviously talk more about Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them once news comes out. The next news item is that Ang Lee is in talks for the sci-fi action film Gemini Man. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not sure. Gemini Man, but anyway, the project has been in the works in Hollywood for a very, very long time. The film was first set up over at Disney, believe it or not, probably under their Touchstone banner. In 1997, I'm losing track already. In 1997, that's when this project was first put up. It was going to be directed by the late Tony Scott, but of course the project fell apart, and there were multiple times when they tried to bring it back, but it just kept breaking down, and then it popped up again in 2009. But of course that didn't work out, and at the time it was written by a pre-Game of Thrones writer / showrunner, David Benioff. But that didn't work out. That didn't work out either, and now they're trying to bring it back. Skydance, they're the ones responsible for the new upbringing of this project. They've done the Star Trek films, and they recently released all the recent Mission Impossible films. They nabbed the rights last year, and they attached Jerry Bruckheimer to produce the project. So now they're trying to eye up Ang Lee and try to bring him in. He's still in negotiations, so it's not a done deal just yet. But it'll be kind of cool to see him kind of come in and do that. So the film itself, the project, it follows an aging NSA agent trying to retire, but is targeted for death. But he later finds out the person that's targeting him is actually a cloned younger version of himself. So it's people are already kind of making the Looper comparisons and whatever, but we'll see. Obviously Ang Lee has a very interesting style, so we'll see how he does it. And of course he's coming off the very ambitious and unprecedented film the long halftime walk of Billy Lynn, which was shot and projected, not everywhere, but projected in some places, at 120 frames per second, which is 5 times faster than any other normal projection that you see. Usually we see 24 frames per second. If you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, it just makes the film look really, really different for all intents and purposes. But he's also done films like Crouch, Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Life of Pi he did, Brokeback Mountain. All these movies are very different, so you know he's very comfortable of changing styles and stuff like that. So it'd be very interesting to kind of see him. It would be interesting to see him do that, depending on how he approaches the film. So it'd be interesting. There was an update to this story this week that Will Smith is in talks for the lead role, although we don't know if he's going to sign on yet. It looks like he's in early talks, so we'll have to be aware of that. We'll have to be in consideration for that. Obviously, Will Smith last week talked about how he was in talks to play Genie in the Aladdin live-action movie. So Will Smith's trying to find some projects. And it'll be interesting to see if he takes this role, because he'll have to pull double duty, probably, assumingly he'll have to play double duty in this movie. Alright, but let's move on. This is the last bit of news that came out last week after the podcast went up. It was 20th Century Fox. Over the weekend, they released a bunch of release dates and delays for a lot of their films. And it kind of just took everyone by surprise over the weekend, because the weekends are usually very, quiet. But 20th Century Fox was like, man, no, we're just going to drop all these release dates on you guys. So we're going to start with the delays first. So the first delay for 20th Century Fox is The Maze Runner, The Death Cure. That was set to come out on January 12th of 2018. They've pushed it back to February 9th. So now it's going to come out in February. Assumingly, the January release date was already the new release date, because after, of course, Dylan O'Brien's accident on set, they had to push back the release date. I believe that movie was supposed to come out this year, but obviously, of course, that didn't work out, so they pushed it back to January. Now they're pushing it back again to February. So there's that. And this one for me is the bummer of it all, because they have delayed The Predator. Now, The Predator was supposed to come out on February 9th of 2018, but now they've pushed it back later into the summer on August 3rd. I don't mind it being a summer movie. I just hate the fact that I have to wait a hell of a lot longer for the Predator movie that's directed by Shane Black. So there's that. Avatar sequels. Oh, the Avatar sequels. Okay, I'm not holding my breath. No one should hold their breath for the new Avatars, because they've been pushed back. They've been delayed so many times now. This is I believe this like the third time they've released the release dates for all the next films. So just take this for, I don't know, just take this for what it is, I guess. I don't know. So Avatar 2 will come. It's still a long ways away. Like, no, this isn't like, oh, it's going to come out like in 2 years. No. Avatar 2 is not set to come out until December 18th, 2020. So there's a long ways away before we see these. Avatar 3 is set to come out December 17th, 2021. Avatar 4, December 20th, 2024. And Avatar 5, December 19th, 2025. So, if you can wait that long for more Avatar sequels, there you go. They also marked a release date for the Bryan Singer-directed Freddie Mercury biopic that is appropriately titled Bohemian Rhapsody. That will star Rami Malek from Mr. Robot as Freddie Mercury. They gave that a Christmas Day release for next year, 2018. They've also given a lot of the new X-Men films some release dates, which will make some fans happy. Josh Boone's New Mutants, set within the world of the X-Men, will come out on April 13th, 2018. The much talked about new X-Men movie, which finally has a title, X-Men Dark Phoenix, will be released on November 2nd, 2018. Take another crack at the Dark Phoenix storyline. And Deadpool 2 finally has a release date. I know a lot of people have been talking about this one since it came out. Deadpool 2 will come out on June 1st, 2018. So now we have a release date for Deadpool 2, so everyone can relax a little bit. So those are the release dates. Again, the biggest takeaway, of course, is the Deadpool 2 release date, and the fact that the X-Men movies will take another crack at the Dark Phoenix storyline. But the biggest bummer for me is, of course, the Predator, like I mentioned, because I've been waiting a long time for that one. But we'll see what they do with that. Alright, so let's move on to trailer talk before we get to this week's movies. Ironically, one of the trailers actually started up the news cycle this week, and that was the first trailer for Kingsman: The Golden Circle, which looks like they've upped the ante from the last Kingsman movie. The trailer doesn't really give, it's a teaser, so it doesn't really give too much away, except for like that final bit, which if you haven't seen the first Kingsman movie, I highly recommend you do. But there's a reason why Eggsy and Merlin, played by Taron Egerton and Mark Strong, are so surprised to see said person at the end of the teaser. It's going to be interesting to see kind of how they do that. I'm very interested in seeing how they decide to bring that character back into the fold, because there was no way you can. There's absolutely no way you could have bought that character. I don't know how they're going to do it. Obviously, the Kingsman is set within its own little world, and it's going to be fun. Hopefully, I like the teaser. I did. I don't know if it was. I don't know if maybe I was bought down a little bit by the fact that the first thing they released was that 18-second teaser trailer. I like that. I like this new teaser, but I don't know. I just wasn't. I know it's a teaser, and I know I'm gonna go watch it. I know it's gonna be good, and I know I'm gonna really enjoy the hell out of it, like I did the first one. But I don't know. There was something about the teaser. I was like, I don't know. I mean, I loved everything about it, but I just wasn't too over the top for it. There was that. All right. So there was also a new trailer for Cars 3 that came out. They pretty much ditched the whole dark tone that the previous teasers were going for, which I kind of knew was going to happen. I mean, it is still a Pixar movie. I'm kind of bummed about that. This new trailer does show a lot more of the heartwarming, comeback kind of story feel, which is fine. Which is, I think, what the movie's going to go for anyway. But I don't know. I was kind of bummed out they weren't going to go kind of the darker route. I think that would have been interesting. It still would have been a Cars movie, but it still would have been pretty interesting. So the trailers are up there if you want to go check them out. Of course, there will be a link down below in the description/show notes area. Alright, so let's move on to this week's movie news. First up, a little quick news bit, kind of connected to trailer talk. Ridley Scott says the new Blade Runner 2049 trailer will be attached to Alien Covenant. Alien Covenant is set to come out in pretty much a month. It's set to come out May 19th. I think I could be wrong about that. May 18th, something like that. But yeah, it's going to be connected to that. So obviously, I'm pretty sure the trailer will come out online before then. So if it does, we'll obviously talk about it. But if you need another reason to go watch Alien Covenant, the new Blade Runner 2049 trailer is going to be attached. So let's move on to the other news items. Disney, not to be outdone by 20th Century Fox, released new release dates for a bunch of their films, including the Lion King movie, Frozen 2, Indiana Jones 5, and yes, Star Wars Episode 9. So let's get right to it. And of course, let's talk about Star Wars, because that's the only thing you guys probably really care about. So Star Wars Episode 9 is now dated to come out on May 24th, 2019. Yes, which means that Star Wars will rule the summer over the Memorial Day weekend, because that's what's going to happen. So sticking with Lucasfilm, Indiana Jones 5 has been delayed a full year. It was supposed to come out on July 2019. It has now been pushed back to July 2020, more specifically July 20th. July 10th, 2020. So there's that. When it comes to Frozen 2, it's going to be sticking to pretty much the same time it got released last year. Frozen 2 will come out the Thanksgiving weekend in 2019 on Wednesday, November 27th. So there's that. The live-action, quote-unquote, live-action adaptation of The Lion King will hit theaters on July 19th, 2019. Pretty much basically taking the Indiana Jones release date, probably. And it looks... It's moving a lot quicker than I thought, because I don't know why. I just thought that maybe we wouldn't be seeing that movie until 2020, but 2019, that's pretty good release date for it. And the live action stuff, and we'll be talking about The Lion King again in just a second, because there was a bigger movie news item that came out with that. But we'll get to that in just a second. But I'm just surprised by the release date of 2019. But I'm excited for it after seeing what Jon Favreau, who's directing this movie, did with the Jungle Book. I'm excited. So let's move on to Ralph Breaks the Internet, Wreck-It Ralph 2. That will be coming out on November 21st, 2018. It was originally going to come out in March, but they moved it back to, they pushed it back to November 2018. The adaptation of A Wrinkle in Time, directed by Selma director Ava DuVernay, which we talked about in the podcast a few times, will come out on March 9th, 2018. And finally, the live-action comedy Magic Camp will come out on April 6th of 2018. We haven't talked about Magic Camp. There has been some casting updates on that. We just haven't talked about it. Basically because it felt like they were just releasing casting updates pretty much every day, and I don't think they've finished casting yet, so I'm waiting to see the finalized cast to finally talk about it here on the podcast, which is why we haven't talked about Magic Camp. So they've also, Disney released release dates for Untitled films on their docket, one of them being a Marvel film, set to come out on August 7th, 2020. 2 live-action adaptations for April 3rd, 2020 and March 12th, 2021. A Disney animation film for November 24th, 2021. And an Untitled Pixar film for June 18th, 2021. The biggest release date delay for Disney is Disney Animation's Gigantic, which is a twist on the Jack and the Beanstalk story. That was supposed to come out next year, but they've delayed it for another 2 years, so now it's not coming out until 2020 on November 25th. That one took a hit too, because that got delayed. This is the second time it's been delayed. So I don't know what's going on with that project. I don't know if they can't nail it down, or they're just having trouble, or just keep pushing it back for all their other stuff. But that one just can't seem to catch a break. So there you go. Those are your release dates. Updates for Disney. And speaking, I told you I had an update on The Lion King. Seth Rogen and Billy Eichner, I think that's how you pronounce his name, I don't know, are eyed for Timon and Pumbaa on the live-action Lion King film. So, like I mentioned earlier, Jon Favreau will direct the film, and the movie already has Donald Glover set to voice Simba, and James Earl Jones set to return to voice Mufasa. And now it's coming down to pretty much getting the other voice casts. And 2 of those are Timon and Pumbaa. The Wrap is reporting that Seth Rogen and Billy Eichner, again, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that last name right, are in final negotiations, can't speak now, to voice the iconic duo. Eichner will voice Timon, while Rogen will voice Pumbaa. Of course, the duo helped Simba learn the ways of the wild when he was separated from his pride, and of course after the death of his father, which is not a spoiler. The movie's more than 20 years old. Settle down about, oh, you ruined it. No, I didn't ruin it. You just haven't watched it yet. And it's one of the biggest things about Disney. I don't know how you avoided that for so long in your life. But anyway, details on the film are under wraps at the moment. We can assume it's going to follow the same kind of story. There has been reports that it will have some musical elements from the original film, so there is that. And Beyonce is being courted to voice Nala, but they haven't nailed her down just yet. Finally, the film will use the same technology that Favreau used in the Jungle Book movie for this one. That's why I keep saying quote-unquote over live action, because it's not really live action, but it is live action in some way, so there is that. The Lion King will have a release date of July 20th, 2019, like we just mentioned, so be aware for that. So I don't know, Lion King is probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, not the favorite Disney animation film. So but after seeing what Jon Favreau did for the Jungle Book, I'm excited for it. I am. This is probably one of the only real live action, again, quote unquote live action movies that I'm actually really excited for. Sticking with Disney in a lot of respects, a former Disney project, the Chronicles of Narnia reboot has found a director. It was announced late last year that the Chronicles of Narnia would be getting a reboot treatment, with the film subtitled The Silver Chair. That's actually based off the fourth novel of the C.S. Lewis series, and it follows the cousin of the siblings from the three films that we've seen already, and the first three books, and a classmate of theirs that is set out to rescue Prince Rilian, which is the son of a now older Prince Caspian, or King Caspian, at least in this story. The film already had a writer in David McGee, who wrote A Life of Pi, and now has a director, as reports say that Joe Johnston has signed on to direct the project. The film will again be a full reboot with new actors and new stories to tell. The first two films were done by Disney, like I mentioned earlier. That was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and Prince Caspian. And then Fox 2000 took over the rights for the last film, which was The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. However, the last two films didn't really make the same amount of money the first film made, and it kind of failed to make any real impression like the first film. The last film wasn't really that good, and Prince Caspian was okay. It wasn't that bad, but The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was for me the best of the three films that came out. When it comes to Joe Johnston, he's a great choice. He's a great director. He's got a lot of great projects under his belt, like The Rocketeer, Jumanji, Captain America: The First Avenger. He also directed Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. He directed Jurassic Park 3. His last film he directed was Not Safe for Work. So he's a good director. He's a great choice. Depending on kind of the approach they take with this, it should be interesting to kind of see where they go. And I assume this will be the first of a new franchise. They've already said that they want to take everything in a new direction, with new stories and new characters and all that. So it's gonna be it should be interesting to kind of see where they go with this. I'm interested in seeing where they go. I like the first one. Prince Caspian was okay, and the last one was just wasn't all that great. But we'll see where they go with this. The live-action remake of Masters of the Universe, aka He-Man, finally has a release date. However, it loses its director. The film has been in the works for a long time. It's been in the works since 2009. That's kind of when they really started getting serious again about making it, when they attached John M. Chu, who directed a few of the Step Up movies. He directed the G.I. Joe Retaliation. He was attached to direct, but of course things fell through, and Sony Pictures tried again in 2014 with Harold Swart, who directed the Karate Kid remake. He was being eyed. Chris McKay at the time was being eyed, but he was just a kind of more of a visual effects guy at the time. He ended up, of course, going to make his feature film debut with the Lego Batman movie earlier this year. And Mike McKill, who directed Another Earth, he was also attached or in the running to direct. These three were in the running to direct, but they never moved on it. They just kept moving past it. And then finally last year they hired McG, who directed like the Charlie's Angels films. He directed Terminator Salvation. He's a big producer on a lot of things, especially a lot of TV on the TV side of things. They gave him the reins, but that won't happen either because he's dropped out, and now the studio is looking for a new director. But they gave the film a release date anyway, which is kind of strange. So the release date for Masters of the Universe will be December 18th, 2018. So it's still a bit away, but it's a lot closer than we can think because it's next year. Not only that, Sony Pictures has hired David S. Goyer, who wrote Man of Steel and Batman Begins, amongst other things, to write the script. But there's no word yet on the take the studio will do with will approach. There's no word on the approach that the studio will take. There you go. Got my words mixed up there. So there's no word on that. But with the release date of 2018, we can assume that they probably maybe have someone in line. Maybe they have someone in talks they haven't released yet. But that's gonna sneak up on them. December 18th, 2018. They're gonna have to start filming this fall, or at least a little later this year. At least somewhere early November, maybe like late winter. That's cutting it close, but they can can certainly make that work if they find someone who can shoot a film fast. But yeah, Masters of the Universe could be the next big trilogy or the next big franchise for Sony Pictures if they play their cards right and they hire the right people. I don't know who they can. There's no word yet on who they're even eyeing up. So, but they have a release date now. Hopefully, we'll hear a lot more about Masters of the Universe and He-Man, because the last one wasn't so good. If you don't remember the last one, Dolph Lundgren was in the last one. Just watch like a scene online. It's not that good. It really isn't. So yeah, there you go. Masters of the Universe, He-Man, back in theaters. Alright, let's move on to the next news item. Taissa Farmiga, maybe that's how you pronounce her name. Everyone always mispronounces her name. I think it is Taissa. I think I've heard her say Taissa Farmiga before. Has joined the Conjuring spinoff, The Nun. The Conjuring universe is getting another Farmiga, because if you don't know, her older sister, Taissa's older sister, Vera Farmiga, plays, of course, Lorraine Warren in the Conjuring films. And she's the younger sister of Vera Farmiga. The film is called The Nun, which is, again, another spin-off of the Conjuring films. The Nun appeared in The Conjuring 2, which is interesting that she's getting a spin-off movie, because James Wan has admitted that The Nun was a character that was a last-minute creation and addition to the movie when they were doing additional filming and reshoots. But either way, the character left a massive impact on the film. If you ask anybody, like, I know I've asked people like who have seen The Conjuring 2, what was one of their one of the more scarier moments. A lot of them said the nun character, because we're all afraid of nuns, pretty much. And the nun character in The Conjuring 2 was definitely one of James Wan's, for me, more scarier interpretations and more scarier characters that he's created. But anyway, the younger Farmiga will now join Damian Bashir, who was already casted in the film. And the film will be directed by Corin Hardy. And speaking of James Wan, he will come back to produce the film. The film will follow a priest named Father Burke, played by Damian Bashir, dispatched by Rome to investigate a mysterious death of a nun. The younger Farmiga will play a young nun who helps Father Burke on her journey. And also now part of the film is Bonnie Aarons. She actually played the nun in The Conjuring 2, so bringing her back is pretty cool on their part. I'm more interested in seeing how they approach oh my god, I already forgot how to say her name. The younger Farmiga's casting. I'm more interested in seeing, but no, it is interesting because they look so. If you see them, they look so much alike. And for a long time, I actually thought that they were. And a lot of people think this. I'm not the only one. A lot of people thought that they were mother-daughter, but they weren't. They're actually siblings. It's an age gap. But you can't really make a Conjuring film and not expect people to be like, hey, she looks a lot like Lorraine Warren. What's going on there? So is the nun going to be like a prequel? Obviously, it's going to probably be a prequel. But how big of a prequel is it going to be? Like, is it going to be someone connected to the Warrens? Like, is she going to be related to someone from the Warrens? We don't know. But you can't really cast her and not expect people to be like, huh. So is there a connection there? It should be interesting. I'm actually a fan of. Seriously, I forgot how to already pronounce her name. Taissa. I'm going to go with that. I'm a fan of hers. I actually am a fan of hers. I was a huge fan of hers in the Final Girls. But you haven't seen the Final Girls, I highly recommend you do. It's a really cool horror comedy movie. It's kind of meta in a lot of ways, but it's really good. And there's a really great story in there too. She was great in that. I know a lot of people know her from the American Horror Story TV show. She was involved in the first few seasons there. I've seen her in The Bling Ring. She had a small role in that. I know she's done a bunch of other stuff as well, but I'm a huge fan of hers. I think she has a very interesting career ahead of her. Probably a great career depending on the projects she picks, and should be interesting to kind of see how she does in here. So again, it's in my head now. Like they're gonna have to connect it because they look too much alike. They really do. The Nun will get a appropriately titled release date of Friday the 13th, 2018 in July. So you can look forward to that next summer. Alright, moving on to the next project of our... So the next news item, or I guess the next project in a lot of ways too. Jeff Goldblum has joined the cast of Jurassic World 2.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Jeff Goldblum is returning to the world of dinosaurs, as the Hollywood Reporter has reports that Jeff Goldblum will reprise his role as Dr. Ian Malcolm in Jurassic World 2. This will be, of course, Goldblum's third Jurassic film. He starred in the first two Jurassic Park movies, and now he joins the cast of Chris Pratt, Bryce Dallas Howard, Justice Smith, Toby Jones, B.D. Wong, and James Cromwell. There's no word yet on what the film will be about, other than, of course, that it will follow the events of Jurassic World, and it has been described by some people on the cast, or some of the writers, I should say, and the director, as more scarier than the first film, and will probably even touch on some animal rights issues. So that should be interesting. However, adding Goldblum to the cast is pretty damn awesome. I mean, it's Jeff Goldblum. Come on. Jurassic World 2 will be directed by J.A. Bonilla and will be released on June 22nd next year, 2018. A Madonna biopic is in the works over at Universal Pictures. That's right, boys and girls, we're getting a Madonna biopic. The film's launching pad was a script titled Blonde Ambition, which was on the Hollywood's 2016 Blacklist. For those of you guys who don't know, the Blacklist in Hollywood is a list of unproduced screenplays that Hollywood insiders think are the best scripts that are not being made at the moment. And that was on the top of that list last year. The script was written by newcomer Elise Hollander, who served as an assistant to Alejandro Iñárritu when he made Birdman. So she learned from the best. And we'll have Michael D. DeLuca, who produced The Social Network, and Brett Ratner producing the film. Yes, that Brett Ratner. The film is set in the early 1980s and tracks Madonna's work on her first album, which was self-titled Madonna. Quote, struggling in the business that treats women badly while also dealing with a love life and the first hints of fame. That debut album Madonna yielded hits like Borderline, Holiday, and Lucky Star, and set the pop star on the path towards superstardom, unquote. Madonna actually did catch wind of the project, and she wasn't too happy about it. She had some really nasty words to say, saying, "No, quote, no one knows what I know and what I've seen. Only I can tell my story. Anyone else who tries is a charlatan." I'm not kidding. She actually said charlatan, and a fool who is looking for instant gratification without doing the work. This is a disease on our society. I am not kidding. That is what she said. That was the end quote. Now, of course, Madonna hasn't seen the film. She probably hasn't even read the script. And one would assume that Hollander, the writer of the movie, at least did probably some research about the pop star before writing the script. And it's not like it's a full life biopic. It's taking this short amount of time in the early 80s on her first album. So maybe she'll come around to it. Who knows? Maybe she won't. Maybe she'll just be, bitter about it. I don't know. There's no director attached at the moment. No one is being eyed for the role of Madonna just yet either. So take that for what's okay. It's still the early days of it. Maybe it won't happen. Maybe Madonna will be like, damn this movie I'm not gonna let this movie stand. I'm not gonna let it happen. She needs to calm down a little bit using words like that. But, she is entitled to her life story, and I'm pretty sure they'll bring her in at some point, be like, hey, that this happened, then this happened, and she'll try to shut it down. I don't know. We'll let them worry about it. Another biopic that's in the works, Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Sony Pictures' TriStar banner will work with WWE Studios to tell the story of pro wrestling's titan Vincent Kennedy McMahon. The film is called Pandemonium and will cover McMahon's rise in the wrestling business, from taking over his father's company, who took it over from his father, making him a third generation owner, and moving past the territory phase. Get to that in a second. Before making WWE, or WWF at the time, one of the biggest wrestling companies in the world. Pandemonium is currently has a script by Craig A. Williams, who wrote Underdog. I don't think that's a good sign. But will be directed by John Requa and Glenn Fukara, who directed Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, Crazy Stupid Love, and Focus. So that's that. All kind of movies I enjoyed. So this story is kind of interesting because I mentioned territory phase. Back in the day, wrestling was the way it worked. It wasn't like one big company, like everyone assumes, like, oh, all wrestling is WWE, right? No, it's not. Or these people still call it WWF. Back in the day, there was territories. So there was like the Southern Territories, there was the Northern Territories. They were divided up between people and owners and stuff like that. And at the time, of course, WWE or WWF at the time wasn't always called WWF. It was called, I believe it was called something else at the time. I just can't remember what it was. But the story behind all of that is pretty interesting because Vince McMahon at the time, he didn't want to stick to the territory phase. He wanted everything to be bigger and wanted it to be treated like a company and all this stuff. And the story of Vince McMahon and how he took over his father's company and made it to what it was, in the 90s when everyone was really into wrestling, and to what it is now. It's primed for a big screen story. It really is. So it's just kind of interesting that they're working with WWE Studios. So it seems like Vince McMahon is okay with having his story not being told, but will be told. Of course, the question of how much the story being told is real, and it's going to be an entirety. But it's going to be interesting for wrestling fans who either know the story or don't know the story or know partial of the story to see what they actually allow in and what they actually put into the film. So it should be this should be pretty intriguing. I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to seeing how they do. Now, of course, this is a movie about Vince McMahon. This isn't a story about the WWF, as it was known at the time. Now it's called the WWE. So it should be interesting. I'm looking forward to this. I actually am. So there's no word yet on when the film will go into production. But as soon as that happens, they already have a writer. They already have a writer. They have a director. Pretty sure they have producers. So pretty sure casting will begin pretty soon on that. All right. So this next story, actually, you know what? I will save the story for the end, for the last bit, because it's actually a spoiler. So we'll skip that story and go to the next story. David Fincher is officially directing World War Z 2. Maybe. Just settle down a little bit. And something that hasn't been made official just yet. Variety reported this week that David Fincher will indeed direct the sequel to World War Z, reuniting with Brad Pitt, who of course will return to produce and star in the sequel. Now, the film was taken off the schedule by Paramount Pictures because they were going through a regime change at the time, so they didn't want some projects that were on the at the very end of the totem pole to kind of get lost in the shuffle. So they kind of just took everything out. So the film doesn't have an official green light to be filmed, but according to Variety, who has a very knowledgeable source, it will get a green light soon, and David Fincher will direct the film. Now, it was earlier this year that Fincher was linked to the project after he had meetings with Brad Pitt, but nothing came out of it other than Fincher was seriously considering it because of Brad Pitt and him trying to bring him in. Now, at least for the moment, it looks like he's in for his first sequel in a very long time. For those of you guys who don't know, David Fincher's first directorial debut was Alien 3, which, if you ask any fan of Alien, is probably one of the, not the worst Alien film, but a lot of people's least favorite Alien film. And he didn't have a very good experience and didn't sit very well with how he was treated with the studio and everything. So he's kind of stuck away from sequels for a little bit, doing his own thing, and for the better. He's done a lot of great films, obviously. Not only that, this will be Fincher and Pitt's fourth time working together. They have worked on The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, Seven, and of course, everyone's favorite, Fight Club. So they were going to work together on 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but that project fell apart when David Fincher didn't get the budget he wanted, and he was like, screw it, I'm gonna go somewhere else. I'm gonna go do my own thing. Now, if the deal is done, obviously World War Z 2 will catch a break, because obviously it was moved around, it got taken off its schedule, it got the green light taken away from it. It needed a break. Obviously, considering what the first film went through, going through directors and release date changes, production problems, going over budgets, a misunderstanding over gun props. There was a misunderstanding over gun props that were going across the border, which kind of dumb when you think about it, because this is a big studio. Having to reshoot the whole last act of the film. There was a point where director Mark Forster and Brad Pitt weren't even talking to each other, and if they did talk to each other, they talked to each other through other people or through post-it notes. I'm not kidding. That was a report that came out that said they were talking to each other through post-it notes. So World War Z has a lot to it has a lot to live up to. But David Fincher attached, that's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. So all we're waiting is for the green light for the film. We'll see how that works out. And this will also be David Fincher's first film in a long time. He hasn't directed anything, at least feature-length wise, since the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo remake. He has a Netflix series coming up called Mindhunters, coming up. I think it's later this year. I think it might be later this year or early next year. I don't remember the exact date, but yeah, this is kind of cool. This is pretty cool. This is awesome news if the green light is set for World War Z 2. Alright, so let's get to the last movie news item of the week, which is the one I decided to skip past because this is a spoiler. This is a spoiler news item if you haven't seen Split, because this revolves around Split 2 and another movie. So if you haven't seen Split, and you want to watch it, which I highly recommend you do, you don't want to get spoiled for anything, there's timestamps down below. Just click just click past this movie news item. I think this is the last news item of the day, so you'll just go directly to the movie news coming, the movies coming out this weekend. But if you haven't seen Split 2 and you have seen this movie news item and you know what's going on, it's gonna be awesome. I'm gonna retell it to you guys. Alright, are they gone? Are they gone? Are they all gone? Okay. Split 2 is confirmed with a new title and a release date. So M. Night Shyamalan, I'm gonna weave a little bit of a yarn for you guys. So M. Night Shyamalan has had an interesting career, right? I mean, we can all agree on that, right? He broke into the scene with The Sixth Sense, made everyone go crazy with that twist. And a few years back, he made some bad movies. He made a lot of misses. The Happening, The Last Airbender. Some people even say before that, Lady in the Water, which I didn't mind. I haven't seen it in a while, so I don't know. So there was that. However, Shyamalan made a comeback with The Visit. The Visit wasn't that bad. I actually didn't mind The Visit. And more recently, of course, the critically and fan-praised Split. Now, one of the things that made Split a fan favorite was that last-minute twist that no one saw coming. And after that film came out, Shyamalan came out and said that there were plans for a Split sequel, with that ending being the launching pad. Well, he released a series of tweets confirming that not only is the Split sequel in the works, there's a release date and a proper title that is connected to that last-minute twist. Now, if you need a refresher on how Split ended, the film ends with Anya Taylor-Joy's character Casey surviving her encounter and capture by James McAvoy's character with the multiple personalities, and the last personality was, of course, the Beast, which lets Casey go because he sees that she's damaged in her own way. And the film ends with a stinger showing the Beast on the run, and then a diner. There's a TV in a diner which shows the cops at the scene, and there's people be like, oh, wasn't there some guy like a few years back, and they wanted to blow up something, and then the camera kind of slowly pans to the side, and there we see Bruce Willis, and he drops Mr. Glass, which we all know is Samuel L. Jackson's character from Unbreakable, showing that the movie is set in the same universe as Unbreakable. So that being said, M. Night Shyamalan, in a series of tweets, said this: "My new film is a sequel to Split and Unbreakable. It was always a dream to have both films collide in this third film. The iconic Bruce Willis returns as David Dunn. The incomparable Samuel L. Jackson will return as Elijah Price / Mr. Glass. The virtuoso James McAvoy returns as all the characters from Split. And the prodigy Anya Taylor-Joy will return as Casey Cook. I'm reteaming with my partners Jason Blum and Universal Pictures for this crazy comic book thriller, and the film is called Glass. Universal Pictures will release Glass on January 18th, 2019, all over the world. They even released a synopsis for the film, saying Glass, quote, finds Dunn pursuing Crumb's superhuman figure of the Beast in a series of escalating encounters, while the shadowy presence of Price emerges as an orchestrator who holds secrets critical to both men." Now, this is pretty cool. Now, Split was a good movie, but we can make the argument that one of the reasons that Split worked so well was the fact that it hid the fact that it was intentionally kind of a pseudo sequel to Unbreakable. It was kind of its own thing. It was its own little spin-off. And when you look at it, when you go back and you look at Split, it's an origin story. It's a villain origin story for this character. And then at the end, you have, David Dunn, Bruce Willis, kind of showing up being like, well, I found my new bad guy that I gotta hunt down and take down. So that's pretty cool. I mean, just knowing that, just seeing that, is just, when I saw Bruce Willis and he said Mr. Glass, it immediately hit me that it's like, oh my god, he's playing David Dunn from Unbreakable. The next movie is gonna combine these two. Oh, it's gonna be so cool and awesome. And that's what it is. And everyone freaked out when they heard about that. And everyone's appropriately, I should say, freaking out over this. And for a good reason. This is a pretty good move. It is. Now, the only thing that we have to worry about is M. Night Shyamalan pulling a M. Night Shyamalan, because, he's had a role. The Visit was a good return to form. Split was awesome. Split was like, hey, planting his flag down, saying I'm back. So let's hope that Glass continues that trend. Let's hope so. Because if he goes back down the road of The Happening and The Last Airbender, and then it's not going to be good. At that point, just hand the reins off to someone else. Let them take care of it. So yeah, more interesting though, the fact that Casey's returned, the character of Casey. We don't know how big her role is going to be in the film. Obviously, she's going to play a big role because she's the only person that has a connection to the Beast. So maybe it's going to be her teaming up with David to track him down. Should be interesting to kind of see how that works out. So I'm looking forward to this. I really am. Called Glass should be interesting. So we'll see Samuel L. Jackson return, and yeah, this is gonna be cool. I'm actually looking forward to this. I'm not gonna get too excited because it is M. Night Shyamalan, so you never know. But I'm looking forward to this. I really am. Alright, so that was all the news items that came out, at least the time of this recording. Obviously, if anything drops, you are more than welcome to go to my Facebook page. That's facebook.com/moviepit. Once again, that's facebook.com/moviepit. It is a Facebook page devoted for this podcast. Pretty much gives you an early preview of what we're going to talk about, and letting you guys know basically just the news items coming out, and gives you guys an early preview, and you'll be up to date on all the movie news and stuff like that. So there are sometimes movie news items that just come out on the Facebook page that don't make it to the podcast due to timing or just the flow issues, or just the fact that I don't have too much to say about that news item. So check out the Facebook page. I really appreciate if you guys give me a like over there. While you're down there, you can go to my WordPress account, which is movieswithchris.wordpress.com. That's movieswithchris.wordpress.com. Written reviews written by me. I've been a little behind on my reviews this year. I will admit, I've seen a bunch of movies this year. I haven't reviewed them all. The last review up there is The Fate of the Furious. So you guys want to go check that out, you can. But I will be, the summer movie season's upon us, so I will be going back into the review train for that. And also, if you want to follow me on social media, you can. My social media handle is down there for my Twitter and my Instagram. Alright, let's move on to this week's releases. We have one expansion release coming out this week, which is The Promise. Got released last week, but it's getting an expansion release this week. It's with Oscar Isaac, Christian Bale. It's set during the fall. I believe it's the fall of the Ottoman Empire. I think that's what the time frame is. So you want to go check that out, you can. But let's move on to this week's limited releases. The first one is How to Be a Latin Lover. Finding himself dumped after 25 years of marriage, a man who made a career of seducing rich, older women must move in with his estranged sister, where he begins to learn the value of family. The film stars big Hispanic star Eugenio Debrez. He's pretty funny. He's huge. I haven't seen enough of his movies, so I can't say I'm a fan of his, but from what I've seen like in interviews and stuff, he seems like a pretty cool guy. Salma Hayek is also in the film. Kristen Bell is also in the film. Michael Cera and Rob Lowe, for some reason, he's in the movie as well. So we can go check that. So if you want to go check that out, it's a limited release. So there's that. The other limited release this week is Slight. A young street magician is left to care for his little sister after their parents' passing, and turns to illegal activities to keep a roof over their heads. When he gets in too deep, his sister is kidnapped and is forced to use his magic and brilliant mind to save her. This movie's been getting some pretty good reviews. It came out on the film festival circuits earlier this year and last year, and there was a lot of good reviews for this movie. So I am planning on going to go watch this. Hopefully, I know a few theaters are showing this in my area, so I'm going to go watch it this weekend. But finally, the big wide release this week, there's only one. You've probably seen commercials for it. It's The Circle. Based on the Dave Eggers novel of the same name, a woman, Emma Watson, lands a dream job at a powerful tech company called The Circle, only to uncover a nefarious agenda that will affect the lives of her friends, family, and that of humanity. The film also stars Tom Hanks, Karen Gillan, John Boyega, L.R. Coltrane, Patton Oswalt, and the late Bill Paxton. So there's that to also look forward to. The Circle, I don't know. I mean, I was interested, and then some of the TV spots have kind of turned me away a little bit. I don't know what it was about I don't know, maybe just that specific TV spot kind of just turned me away. I was like, I don't know. It wasn't the same movie I was interested in watching earlier. But yeah, that's the only wide release this week. Obviously, they're not putting a lot of movies out, considering that the Guardians comes out next week. But yeah, these are your wide release. This is your wide release, The Circle. Your other movies are Slight and How to Be a Latin Lover, are your limited releases. So let's move on to this week's box office predictions. My picks last week were a little off. They were off by one. Actually, no. My picks last week were off. They were off. They were completely off. I'm not ashamed of saying that. So my picks last week were The Fate of the Furious, The Boss Baby, Beauty and the Beast, Unforgettable, and I had a toss-up between The Promise and Born in China. Last week's actual box office: The Fate of the Furious, The Boss Baby, Beauty and the Beast, Born in China, and Going in Style. So I was a little off on that. But I was right about Born in China. I knew it was going to make it into the top 5. So there you go. So this week's picks, I think The Circle will dethrone The Fate of the Furious. It is Emma Watson. It is Tom Hanks. The movie kind of has a Black Mirror feel, so maybe that will bring some people in. John Boyega's in there too. There's fans of his out there as well. So I think The Circle, it's new. So I think that's I think everyone that wanted to see The Fate of the Furious has already seen it. And I think that the Emma Watson star power is enough to take down The Fate of the Furious on its third week. So The Circle will be number 1. The Fate of the Furious will drop down to number 2. The Boss Baby will be number 3. Beauty and the Beast will be number 4. And Born in China will be number 5. Slight doesn't have a very high theater count. I think it's just under, not just under, it's a lot under 1,000 theaters, so I don't think it's going to make that a lot of money on that. I'll probably make its budget back, but it won't make a lot of money at the box office to get to garner a top 5 position. How to Be a Latin Lover, I think it is getting just over 1,000 theaters, but I don't know if there's a strong audience out there. I could be wrong. I was deciding about making the top 5 a toss-up between that and Born in China, but we'll see. We'll see how that works out. But right now, I'm sticking with my picks. And number 1, The Circle, The Fate of the Furious, The Boss Baby, Beauty and the Beast, and Born in China for my top 5. Alright everybody, that has been the podcast for this week. Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you. If you stuck all the way through, you're the real MVP. You're the real MVP. But thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. It was a lot of news to get through. It was a lot of release. I consider not doing the release date because it's a lot of numbers and release dates that obviously a lot of us are going to forget, and I'm just going to mention them again when the movies come out. But I just wanted to get that out there because it is newsworthy, so I had to put that out there. So, but thank you guys so much for that. Obviously, go check out the links down below for trailers, from the Facebook page again, from my WordPress account, which is my review page, and my written review page anyway, and for my Twitter and Instagram link if you want to follow me on social media. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much. There will be 2 podcasts next week. That's right, you heard me. 2 podcasts next week. I will have, I told you guys, I think it was last week or the week before, that I was planning on doing again the summer movie preview podcast, where we run down all the movies that are coming out this summer. There was a little while where it wasn't going to happen, but it is happening this weekend. I'm recording this weekend with some buddies of mine, and we're going to do it. And so that podcast will go up, I believe, I'm aiming sometime in the middle of the week for that. And then, of course, we'll have the normal podcast, the news cycle podcast coming out next week as well for that. And, of course, that podcast will have a mini review of Guardians of the Galaxy, because I'm going to go watch Guardians of the Galaxy on Thursday next week. So I will have a little mini review for the podcast on when it comes out on Friday. So yeah, that's it, guys. That's all I have for you guys. Be sure to tune in to the summer movie preview podcast coming out next week, and also, of course, our regularly scheduled podcast as well. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys. Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. You guys are awesome. As always, remember to stay safe out there. Have a happy, safe, fun weekend. And as always, once again, go watch some movies.
Whoop whoop! Yeah! Give it up! Movies!